everybody, I'm Cindy Winget, the author of The Apparition, and welcome to my channel. So in today's video, we're going to be doing my November TBR. If you've been subscribed to my channel or have consistently been watching my videos, then you know what this is. But I do this TBR game where I roll a dice and that tells me which bookshelf that I'm looking on. And then I get to go bookshelf by bookshelf and choose one book from each shelf to read. And so there's 6 shelves because I always stack things on top. So that gives me 6 books to read in November, which is about what I can read in a month depending on the length. So let's go ahead and roll this dice and see what we get. Okay, 5, which is this shelf right in front of me. So let's look up here. So I've read all of Dune except for Princess of Dune, but I also have these on the end, and I have not read those yet, but the completionist in me wants to do the Dune one, so I think I'm going to do that one. Okay, down here, oh, this is a hard shelf. I have a lot on here I want to read. I want to read this one at the top, Ship of Fools. I hear really good things. Hyperion is like a classic that I really need to get to. Empire of Silence, I hear that the first book isn't really the best necessarily, but I hear the rest of the series is like really good. And then Children of Time, people rave about this trilogy. I still haven't read Into the Drowning Deep, shame on me. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with Hyperion, because that one, I don't know, I feel like everybody and their dog has read that book, so I really need to get to it. Okay, coming down here. So it looks like down here we have a lot of like Frankenstein retellings, and then some historical like body snatching resurrectionist type books. The one that's sticking out to me is The Specimen, because it just sounds really good, and I read a book by that author last year and really loved it, so I think I'm going to go with that one. Okay, and then down here, I'm going to move this so I can see better. Okay, so I really want to read Monstrilio. I hear really good things about that one. But I think it's a little bit more literary. I don't know if I'm in the mood for that. Oh, I just got the new T. Kingfisher, and that would be nice to finish that trilogy, and it's very short. I still have not read Phantom of the Opera yet, and I don't know. I always feel like I need to read more classics. They usually take a back seat. I need to get to them. I think it's going to be between these two. So I really loved What Moves the Dead, but then What Feasts at Night wasn't really my favorite. Like, I still liked the vibes and the atmosphere, but I just didn't love the book itself as much as I liked the first one, which makes me apprehensive about the third one. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Phantom of the Opera. Okay, head on down here. Okay, I need to move some stuff so I can see. Okay, so it looks like these are more like gothic books, usually with a little bit of history in them. You know what? I think I'm going to go with The Deep, because that has been on my shelves for so long. That's probably one of my oldest books that I haven't read yet, honestly. Although I really want to get to one of B.R. Meyer's books. I hear good things about those. I still haven't read anything by Paulette Kennedy yet. No, I think I should go with my first instincts. I want to do The Deep. Okay, and then down here. Okay, I've read a lot of those ones. I still haven't read anything by Jamie Jo Wright yet. Oh, I don't know. I think Bellevue is actually catching my attention. It's probably because of Big Bold Red, but that one's a fairly recent release. And so usually when books are newer, they tend to be a little bit more exciting for me. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with that one. So those are the 6 books that I'm going to be reading this month in November. It sounds like a fun lineup of books. So we have Hyperion by Dan Simmons, and obviously this is a sci-fi novel, but this is like a retelling of the Canterbury Tales. I don't know much about that book. I've never read it, and I didn't study it in school or anything like that. I know you have this monster called the Shrike, and he's trying to go after people. I don't know why, but he's somebody to be feared. And our main characters, they're like going backwards in time, I believe. And so I guess there's lots of jumping around, and so it kind of feels like tales because they could be almost like short stories, but they're all connected. And I hear that this is a lot of genre blendings. So yes, it's definitely science fiction, but maybe has some horror and thriller and other genres to it as well. So this is a classic, and lots of people talk about this book. And I feel like I'm way behind for not having read this book because it's one of those books that like everybody and their dog has read seemingly if you're part of the sci-fi community. So I really need to get to this. So I'm glad to finally be reading it. And then speaking of classics, we have Phantom of the Opera. And I adore the movie with Gerard Butler, and I love the Broadway show. Music is obviously fantastic, as it should be with a title like Phantom of the Opera. But I have not actually read the book, so I'm really interested to see how this compares to the movie. I don't think I need to tell you what this is about, because unless you're living under a rock, I'm sure you already know. And then we have The Specimen by Jayma Fixon. And this one sounds a lot like the Resurrectionist book that I read in October, which I will be talking about next week. But so this is set during Victorian England, and we have this woman who lost her little boy, and she goes to work for this surgeon, and he has lots of specimens in his laboratory or medical theater or whatever you want to call it. And she sees this heart that's been preserved in this jar, and her son had a heart defect, and it would cause the heart to look like her son's. And so she's like, oh my gosh, is this my son's heart? And then, as you'll know throughout history, people can get money for selling corpses to medical colleges, and they don't always wait for people to be dead before they snatch them up. And so people that had something unique about them, like her son's heart, could have been murdered for that exact organ. And so she kind of starts to wonder if that's what happened to her son, if his death wasn't natural, but he was murdered. So she's trying to figure out what happened to him. So I love books like this. I love historical novels that have like a macabre twist to them. So I'm very excited for this one. It is pretty chunky, but I mean, sometimes that can be a deterrent, and then sometimes it makes me excited because maybe it's properly fleshed out and you get more character development and stuff. So hopefully that's the reason. But I do hate it if it's just fluff or repetitive, and it's like, okay, it really didn't need to be this long. So we'll see which it is when I read it, but I'm very excited to read this one. And then we have Bellevue by Robin Cook, and this is kind of similar to The Specimen because it has to do with medical stuff, but this is a dual timeline where you have like medical hospital in modern times, but then you also have Bellevue, which is the asylum where a lot of people went during Victorian times, especially women who were deemed hysterical. So this new hospital is built very close to Bellevue, and so our main character starts to see what they believe is an apparition, and they're thinking this ghostly presence may be because this asylum is just like up the hill from them or whatever, and that these ghosts are coming down into this modern hospital to wreak havoc or, perhaps to communicate with the living. So Robin Cook is known for his medical thrillers. I have not read any of them, but he's pretty prolific, so hopefully this is a good one. I do wonder though if it's not going to be very creepy because he doesn't write horror. It's usually like medical thrillers. So I don't know if this is a medical thriller or if he decided to try his hand with a little bit of horror. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I guess you could just classify it as a supernatural thriller. So that's probably really what it is. But I mean, it's semantics. I don't know why I'm going on and on about it. It doesn't really matter what it is. But anyways, it sounded fun, so I decided to pick it up on a whim when I was at Barnes& Noble a few months ago. And then we have The Deep by Amakatsu, and I've only read one other historical horror novel by Amakatsu, which was The Fervor, and I thought it was okay. I love history, and I liked the setting with the Japanese internment camps, and the idea behind the spider demon was interesting, but the actual execution was just kind of lacking for me. But this is another historical horror book about the Titanic, and so our main character, she was part of the sinking of the Titanic, and then months later she gets a job on the sister ship, which is called the Britannic, and she's a nurse there because the ship has been turned into a medical hospital during World War I, and so she gets this job, and then that one also happens to sink. So she is on both ships that happen to both sink. It seems like the reason for the sinking might be because of a ghost, because it talks about like sirens and different ghostly presences that can be out on the water or in the ocean. So I've heard there's also like a seance on the ship, and I love stories that have seances, and I love ghost stories in general, and I love historical, so this sounds like it has the makings to be right up my alley. So I really need to get to this because this is one of the oldest books on my shelves. I've had this for so long and just haven't gotten to it, and I'm so sad and ashamed of myself for that. So I'm glad to finally be reading this book. And then we have Princess of Dune. And I am a huge lover of Dune. I've read it many times. I've read the entire series, including the prequels. His son, Brian Herbert, and then this man, Kevin Anderson, who's also a science fiction novelist. They got together and they not only wrote 2 trilogy prequels to Dune, but they also wrote these books. This is part of a series that's supposed to give backstory to everything. So they had one about Paul, one about Leto, one about Jessica, and then now we're getting this one, which is about Princess Arulon and Chani. This is the last and final book that I need to read, and then I've read everything by this author, or these authors, both Frank Herbert and the son and Kevin, and I will have read everything. While I loved the prequels, the in-between books and this series is not necessarily my favorite. Oh, I said there was 2 prequel trilogies. I just remembered there's actually 3, but that's beside the point. But anyways, I really enjoyed all the prequels a lot, but the ones that were written in between, and then this series in particular, that's just like backstory, seems a little bit more like fluff, seems a little bit more like a cash grab in my opinion. But I just love that world. I love the characters. And I just want to dive back into and get immersed into this world that I love. So even if it isn't like the greatest or the best, or it's a little bit, filler, I still am very excited to read this. And I hope it's not too terrible. So that's all the books I plan to read in the month of November. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to my channel if you feel so inclined. I post every Friday, and I hope to see you in the next one. See ya!